All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, before I get started, I'd like to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachah, Kodash, and double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone that has taught us this truth and sincerity, peace, and blessings to the hopeful elect that is scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom, shalom. It's your brother Kodash coming back at you with another lesson through the Holy Spirit. And in this lesson right here, I entitled it, Murmuring Provokes the Anger of the Lord. Okay, murmuring provokes the anger of the Lord. And this is what our people did in the wilderness, coming out of Egypt. They murmured, man. They talked shit, they was unthankful, and that provokes the anger of the Lord, man. All right, and I'm gonna get into some precepts, showing you that, man, and showing that, the murmurings and you speaking up under your breath, even the thought in your mind, because it all starts with that thought, the things that you say in your mind, you might not utter it out in words, but you said it in your mind. The Lord hears all of that, man. Okay. So getting into it, this is murmur in the online etymology dictionary, late 14th century. It says expression of popular discontent or complaint by grumbling. You see, and that's what our people was doing in the wilderness, man, complaining. And that's one thing that pisses the Lord off, complaining, man. So we want to beware of this spirit right here, man. You don't want to go into the time of Jacob's trouble with a complaining spirit, man, because that's only going to provoke the anger of the Lord upon you, man. Okay. So going further into this definition for murmur, it says sound of human voices, trouble, argument. It says to murmur. All right, mutter. All right. It says muttering. Okay, a hum. Let's see what else it says. Murmur. It says a low sound continuously repeated. All right, like whispering, speaking up under your breath, softly spoken words. You see? And it says, for murmur right here, it says make a low continuous noise, grumble, complain. You see? That's pretty much the point, man. You pretty much complaining. Okay? And being in that spirit, it only provokes the anger of the Lord, man, to bring judgment upon you. This is murmur. This is some of the similar words. It says a whisper, a undertone, mutter, a mumble. You see? Just like growing up, your parents be like, you mumbling? You mumbling? What you say? And they'll been and, gave you everything that you wanted and some, and you still ungrateful. You still mumbling and talking shit, man. You see? It says a complaint, grumble, moan, growls, a mutter. You see? And that's pretty much the point. You get the gist, man. A complaint. You complaining. And all throughout, the wilderness, man, the Lord was performing miracles, feeding our people with that manna, taking care of them, making sure that they were straight. And they still talk shit, man. All the different miracles that the Lord performed for for our people coming out of Egypt, as it's finna go into Psalm 78 and verse 12. Marvelous things did he in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Egypt, in the field of Zoan. It says in verse 13, he divided the sea and caused them to pass through, and he made the waters to stand as an heap. Right. And the Lord did do that, man. When we was coming through the Red Sea, because the elect was amongst, that batch, man. But you had our people that was amongst the elect in those times. They was murmuring, man. They was talking shit, but you always had that remnant, that was humble, they was content, they was thankful. But you had that one batch that was always dissatisfied. They was always complaining, And it goes on to say in verse 14, it says, in the daytime also he led them with a cloud going into that chariot, okay? And it says, and all the night with a light of fire, right? Because the chariot had those lights on the chariot, man, to where as we was going through the sea, walking upon the floor of the sea, we could see where we was going. But behind us, our enemies, Pharaoh and his army was chasing after us. The Lord had it to where the ship had it dark back there, man. All right, to where they couldn't really see like that. Okay, you know. So with all this, our people was complaining, man. All right, here it is. You walking through you walking through the midst of a fucking like sea, man. Come on, man. Just imagine right now. You you on one side of the Mississippi River, and your enemies are on you, and your only way to safety is to get to the other side. And the Lord have it to where He opened up the Mississippi River, man. And you walk through. The Lord show you that miracle, and then you get to the other side and act like He ain't did shit. That pisses the Lord off, man. You gotta put yourself. You gotta really think like, damn, man. I see where the Lord's coming from. Just imagine you doing something for somebody and looking out for them and making sure they good, and at the end of the day, all you get is complaining, talking shit. They unthankful. You would be angry too. You see? And it says in verse 15, he clave the rocks in the wilderness and gave them drink as out of the great depths. Right. The Lord, gave us that water out of the rock. And it says he brought streams also out of the rock and caused water to run down like rivers. And it says in verse 17, and they sinned yet more against him by provoking the Most High in the wilderness. Right. So Jake was just going off, man. Jake wasn't considering what the Lord was doing. They was just adding sin unto sin, man. They was just adding sin unto sin. Okay? Cause it speaks about that in Ecclesiasticus 5 and verse 4. It says, say not I have sinned, and what harm have happened unto me? For the Lord Yahweh Shema Shai is long suffering. He will in no wise let thee go. Right. The Lord is long suffering, man. The Lord is long suffering, but it comes to a point where that long suffering comes to an end, man. And the Lord starts to bring that judgment upon you. And that's what He did to our people in the wilderness. The Lord was long suffering for a time, but He just got to the point where he couldn't take it no more, man. So He just started bringing judgment upon our people, man. Jake started to fall dead, And it says in verse 5, concerning propitiation, be not without fear to add sin unto sin. And it says in verse 6, and say not, his mercy is great, he will be pacified for the multitude of my sins. For mercy and wrath come from him, and his indignation resteth upon sinners, you see. And that's what they got, man. They got that righteous anger of the Lord, okay? The Lord, brought that destruction upon them. The Lord brought that judgment upon them, man, okay? And going back to Psalms, Psalm 78, where I was at, Psalm 78, and real quick, Psalm 78 and verse 17, and it says, and they sin yet more against him by provoking the Most High in the wilderness. And it says in verse 18, right, and I want to make a point on that, provoking the Most High in the wilderness. They was provoking the Most High by way of their actions, the shit that they was doing, the shit that they was saying, their thoughts, that was provoking the Lord, man, to bring judgment upon them. And it says in verse 18, and they tempted the Most High in their heart, you see, their mind, by asking meat for their lust, right? So the Lord had already provided, but they was like, damn, man, we want more, we want more. Can you not give us this? Jake was desiring a certain taste, And it says in verse 19, yea, they spake against the Most High, Yahweh Shema Shai. They said, can Yahweh Shema Shai furnish a table in the wilderness? You see? And it says in verse 20, behold, he smote the rock that the waters gushed out and the streams overflowed. Can he give bread also? You see? So Jake was just really doing too much, man. Here it is. The Lord is sustaining you, man. Just be thankful, man. Just be thankful. Be content. And that's the reason why, the Apostle Paul said this, man. In Philippians, Philippians 4. Because if you're not in this spirit right here, man, the times that we coming into, you're not going to make it. Philippians 4:11. Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned. You see, and a lot of people have not learned. All right. But see, the time is going to come where the Lord is going to force you into these certain situations. He's going to, like, if you haven't been brought up fasting, the Lord is going to force you to fast in that day. Okay? A lot of people are going to be forced to do things that they don't really want to do. But see, the Lord is already conditioning his elect to be in that mindset now. We fast, we go without. Okay? We be thankful, man. And then, the Lord, he give us, certain things, man. But, we be thankful. You see? And it says, Philippians 4:11, and it says, not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. You see? So being content, man. You want to be in that mindset of just being content, being thankful for what the Lord has given you, man. Scripture speaks about, in the Lord's Prayer, give us this day our daily bread, man. Give us what we need to make it from day to day, man. But Jake be wanting more and more. They done already got blessed, but Jake want more. You see, that's not the mindset to go to have going into Jacob's trouble, man. It says in verse 12, I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. Right. So the Apostle Paul, he pretty much saying like, hey, he know how to operate when being in a lower state, and he know how to operate when being on the high, having things. He know how to operate in both. And a lot of people in these last days, they're not gonna know how to operate when they are abased, because they've been so used to having things a certain way. You see, but that's why the Lord puts his hopeful elect through the highs and lows, man, so that we can know how to operate in these times, and we'll welcome it with open arms in Jacob's trouble. Because the Lord has already been preparing us, prior to Jacob's trouble getting here, man. So we know how to abound and to abase. You see, and it says everywhere in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. You see, because in the times to come, man, we're gonna suffer need, for a little while, because Scripture speaks about, think upon the time, where you're gonna, have hunger. Let me see. Think upon the time, of hunger, real quick. Let me see. Think hunger, real quick. Yep. This is Ecclesiastes, better known as Sirach 18:25. When thou hast enough, remember the time of hunger. And when thou art rich, think upon poverty and need. You see? So you got to think upon these things, man. Because our faith is going to be tried in these last days. Certain brothers that's on certain levels, a lot of this stuff is going to be taken. You see? So you got to think upon these things, because we're going to be put in those situations too. But the Lord said that, behold, his servant shall eat and his servant shall drink. So the Lord is going to feed us and, look out for us. But our faith is going to be tried too, man. Okay? So going back to Psalm 78. Right? Okay, Psalm 78. And real quick, Psalm 78. And Psalm 78 and verse 21. And it says, Therefore the Lord heard this and was wroth. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came up against Israel. You see? And how did the Lord hear it? Because the angels was amongst them, man. Okay? The angels was amongst them. And the angels was amongst them, and there's really nothing hid from them, man. Okay? This is Ecclesiastes 10:20. And it says, curse not the king, no, not in thy thought, you see, in your mind, and curse not the rich in thy bedchamber, for a bird of the air, going to the angels, shall carry the voice, and that which hath wings shall tell the matter. You see? So the angels, man, reported everything Jake was saying in those times, man. and reported it up to the Lord, you know, reported it up to the Lord, and the Lord heard everything. The Lord heard everything, man. This is Wisdom of Solomon. I'm going to close it out right here. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1 and verse 10 in the Good News translation. And it says, Yahweh Shem Yahushai will tolerate no challenge. And since he hears everything, you cannot hide your complaining from him. Verse 11. So be sure that you do not go around complaining. It does no good. And don't engage in bitter talk. The most secret things you say will have their consequences, and lying will destroy your soul, you see? So the most secret things that you say, it has their consequences, man. You see? You see? So the best thing to do in these times, man, is to be of a content heart, man. Be thankful for the things that the Lord give you, man. Okay? You see? Because the Lord hears everything that you say, even the things that you utter, you know, within your mind. You know, you mumble, you groaning. Okay? The Lord, you know, the Lord hear everything, man. The Lord hear everything, and the horn had to blow on it, man. So I'm going to end it off right there, man. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying and to the point. Until next time, I want to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua Ba'ashem Rachak Kodash, and double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone. Until next time, shalom.